Hey friends, we are back. The Best Facts Apologetics Answers show continues today with philosopher and theologian Ken Samples from Reasons to Believe. If you'd like to find out more about Reasons to Believe, go to reasons.org. You could also pick up Ken's new book, Christianity Cross-Examined, while you're there, or you could get it anywhere you buy books. We're talking to Ken today about his book. Ken, I'm so glad that you're still with us here on the show. And I have another question for you. The question I have is, are faith and science mutually exclusive? Because that would be one of the arguments of these new atheists.
Yeah, that's right. I think one of the leading charges that is made by the new atheists is that science gives us facts and reasons and truth, and faith, theology, it just hopes things are true but doesn't have a basis for believing them. Couple points here I think that are very, very important. What I often say to people who make a claim like this is, one, that the worldview that birthed science in the 17th century, there was a scientific revolution in Europe right around 1650. The worldview that was held by those who birthed science and saw it flourish, it was a Christian worldview. There is a scholar named Stanley Yaki, who was a physicist, a philosopher, Roman Catholic. Yaki argues that while ancient civilizations made contributions to science and technology, so the Greeks, the Romans, the Chinese, Mesopotamia, even Babylon, I mean, algebra, for example, mathematics, is a contribution from Arabic. But Yaki argues that science was stillborn in the world because of beliefs that were not conducive to science. I mean, science can't happen in just any worldview. The world has to be conducive to science. Human beings have to have certain intellectual faculties, and there has to be a congruence between the mind of people and the reality of the world. We might call that congruence mathematics and logic. A second point on that issue of science and faith, or science and theology being at odds with one another, many of the presuppositions of science, that there's a real world out there, that world is ordered and regular, has patterns, that human beings have rational faculties and our sensory organs function properly, that math and logic are valid. These are presuppositions. These are not things that you derive from science. These are beliefs and assumptions that you begin doing science with. That led Paul Davies, a leading cosmologist and physicist, to say that science, in order to function, really, you have to have a worldview. In fact, he says that secular scientists often are not willing to admit it, but they do science based on faith. Now, one last point here. This is what I do in the first chapter of my book is, if you go back to the beginning of the 20th century, so the early 1900s, Darwin had made a major approach with his evolutionary ideas, and there were people in the 19th century who said that God was dead, Nietzsche and others. But it was perceived in the beginning of the 20th century as being a new century of secularism, where God would be kind of pushed out of the picture. God would be no longer necessary. What I think is ironic, however, is as that century unveloped, as it unfolded, scientists often discovered the very opposite of what they thought they would discover. Some of the leading secular scientists early in the 20th century thought we would discover a cosmos, a universe that was eternal and therefore wouldn't need a cause. But the opposite is what we've discovered, that the universe, matter, energy, space, and time had a singular beginning. Scientists talk about the Big Bang. Scientists also thought that we would discover a universe that was kind of indifferent to human beings. but the opposite has been discovered. Now we have the argument from fine tuning, and that's no longer even a controversial idea. Everybody believes in fine tuning, that the fundamental constants are ordered, that it's kind of like a control panel where all of these dials that allow for the emergence of intelligent life, they're all dialed into the just right place. And if they were a little higher or lower, life wouldn't be possible. So fine-tuning is no longer controversial. What's controversial is how do we explain it? Well, again, God is the designer. And I look at a number of other issues here. I look at consciousness. I look at human exceptionalism. I mean, people thought after Darwin, humans are not different in kind. They're only different in degree. We just have a little more faculties than the previous species. In reality, even secular scientists, I mentioned Ian Tattersall, a brilliant scholar in the area of biology, a secular person. He says it's quite clear now, human beings are not different in degree from the animals. We're different in kind. He actually believes in human exceptionalism. I think that plays into the Christian view that humans are different. From the dust of the ground, God breathed in human beings the breath of life, and we became living beings. We are exceptional because of that imago Dei. So I think that science needs God. It has in the past, and I think all of these big issues have led to a greater awareness that God is still very much in the picture in explaining the nature of reality.
Absolutely. And again, we see a reality here that a Christian worldview would actually have gotten scientists further faster. We wouldn't have wasted time looking for an eternal universe. We would have realized more quickly that humans are exceptional. I was talking to one of your coworkers, Dr. Fuzz Rana, recently. If you missed those interviews, definitely go back to the Great Commission Alliance media channel and catch those. And we were talking about the predictive value of a creationist perspective, specifically as it regards junk DNA. For all these years, the secular scientists tried to tell us that the vast majority of our DNA is junk DNA. The ENCODE project is absolutely demolishing that argument, and we are finding that there are purposes for all the DNA that we have. I think we would have come to that conclusion much quicker had we acknowledged a designer, rather than believing the alternative simply because we reject a designer. Many philosophers and apologists have argued that without God, you can't even do science. If there were no order to the universe, there would be no predictability upon which all of science is based. So Ken, I encourage the readers to get your book and to learn more on this topic. It's a question that every Christian should be ready to answer. And side note, there are many apologetics ministries out there. And I don't want to step on any toes here, but a lot of them do not handle the science well. I have an undergraduate degree in chemistry, so it is important to me that we would be scientifically minded in our apologetics. And there's no ministry that does it better than Reasons to Believe. Thanks so much for that contribution to apologetics. And Ken, we'll be asking you another question very shortly.